Hello, everyone. You are most welcome to today's presentation, that is surface designing. This week, we are going to do our practical work on dyeing and printing, and hence the need to know more about surface designing. They all come under surface designing. So I hope you will love it. So what is surface designing? Surface designing refers to the process of creating decorative patterns, textures, or visual elements on the surface to enhance its aesthetic appeal. It is widely used in textiles, widely used in ceramics, wallpapers, packaging, and product design. So in textiles, surface designing refers to the process of enhancing the fabric appearance through various techniques such as printing, dyeing, embroidery, and texturing. And it plays a key role in fashion, home decor, and textile. So this comes under fabric decoration. So fabric decoration is the process of enhancing fabric or making it attractive through dyeing, printing, embroidery, applique, etc. So let's look at techniques in textiles, surface design techniques that is being employed in textiles. We have screen printing. Screen printing, that's the common one. Applying ink through a stencil onto fabric or paper. You have block printing, hand carved blocks, which we are going to what? We are going to use for our batik, tie and dye. Hand carved blocks used to stamp patterns onto fabrics or onto surfaces. Then you have digital printing, modern method using technology for high quality prints. There is also embroidery. At times, most at times, embroidery goes with applique. When you apply, when you cut and you paste on the fabric, we use embroidery to stitch it onto the fabric. So most of the time they go together, but they are two different things. Textile embellishment for added texture, laser cutting and engraving, creating intricate patterns on wood, leather, or metal. Then we have embossing or falling, ray designs and metallic effects for luxury effects. So these are all surface design techniques. So we are talking about designing. So what is designing? In textile, design refers to the process of organizing elements and principles of design to create motifs, patterns for fabric decoration. Okay, so you are talking about motif. So what is a motif? It's a main symbol in the work of art. So when you see any decorative fabric, just look at it, you see a main symbol being repeated to create a very nice what pattern for you to look at. So that is that motif, that symbol being repeated is called the motif. And we have ways that we can use to arrange this motif so that it looks beautiful. So let's look at the way. So motif arrangement is a process of organizing motifs into a suitable pattern or design for textile printing. So we have full drop as a principle to guide you, half drop, counter change, OG, border design, and many others, side by side and others. So the full drop. So the full drop design, most of the times you use boxes to guide us. It's a principle that will guide you as how to what, organize your motif. So you put in these small boxes. Then with your design, you put them inside the boxes. This one is full drop. It has dropped fully inside the small box. So there's another one where you drop the box. So this box here, you drop it to the half of this one, the first one. So when you drop it, it will take the second half of the second one. So here you can see this is the full drop here, but the next one have dropped halfway, the next box. So it has taken half of this, and that is called half drop. So if you know the principle, you can do quarter drop, one third drop, and so many others. This one is central motif, where the motif will drop at the center of your fabric, no small, small, small box. But if it is 1 yard, it will drop fully on that 1 yard. So that one example, we have the Angelina. You see how Angelina motif is very big. So we have the OG. The OG design, we mostly use them for curtains. So it takes a shape like an X and a continuous designs, and that is mostly best for curtains. We have all over design. This one you need not to follow the pattern like the first one, full drop. But in everything as an artist, as a designer, you are supposed to apply the principles of design. So when doing it, you're supposed to consider your balance, your unity, your rhythm, harmony, and order. So you can see that here, all these principles are being applied here. The next one is counter change. Counter change. Counter change is also a very nice motif arrangement that looks so beautiful. So here you have your motif. So you use color. You can also use drawing to bring out the contrast. So it is mostly for contrast. So here you have the motif. The background is painted, but the motif is not painted, bringing contrast. So when you move to the next one, the motif is painted, the background is not painted, bringing contrast. So you see the whole thing very beautiful. Then the last one I have here is a border design, where the borders of the fabric are beautifully designed, creating a very nice pattern. Okay. So we are looking at printmaking. We are doing printing and dyeing. So if you talk of printing, what is it? A process of transferring images, transferring marks, impressions, or design from one surface. It can be rollers, blocks, screens, to another surface. And here we are referring to fabric by means of using ink or printing paste. So textile printing is a process of decorating textile fabrics, yarns, and fibers by the application of pigments, dyes, or other related materials with a decorative design using rollers, screens, blocks, or other means. So let's see types of printing that we have. The methods or techniques of printing include block, roller, screen, transfer, or substatic printing. That's where you use heat. Printing styles. On the other hand, we have direct printing. We have discharge printing. Then we have resist printing. So let's look at the two. Direct, discharge, and resist printing. They are printing styles. Okay. So these three broad strategies represent the three represent three broad strategies. Adding, that is the direct, removing, discharge, and resisting colors. That is the resist printing. You look at them. So direct printing, applying dye or pigment directly onto the surface of the fabric, usually using screen, roller, or stamp. And we have other methods that comes under direct printing. We have screen printing. We have block printing. So the screen printing, pushing ink through a stencil on a meshed screen. Then block printing, using card blocks dipped in dye or ink, then press onto the fabric. Roller printing, mostly at the industry. In industrial settings, engraved rollers continuously apply dye or pigment, that is color, directly to fabric, which is ideal for large-scale production and repeated patterns. Here we are talking about high-speed process. Then you have digital printing. Process uses computer-controlled inkjet technology to print design directly onto fabric, known for high resolution and versatility, especially for short runs and or for custom designs. So we have the next one is discharge printing. One of the strategies, discharge printing, starting with a pre-dyed fabric. So here, let's see. I think you did not finish with the direct printing. You have the sublimation printing. This involves transferring dye from a paper or film onto a polyester fabric using heat and pressure. So allowing the dye to vaporize and bond with the fibers. So transfer printing, designs are printed on a transfer paper. We are not going deep into this, but you do the transfer printing. And then heat press onto the fabric, common in sportswear and personalized apparel. So you are going to practice the transfer printing. We have digital printing, uses computer-controlled inkjet technology to print design directly onto fabric, known for high resolution and versatility, especially for short runs or custom designs. So the key point here is that the direct printing, the fabric is not pre-dyed for color removal, nor are certain areas blocked to resist the dye. Instead, color is applied precisely or directly where the designs are needed. So let's look at the discharge printing. Starting with pre-dye. So here the fabric is pre-dyed. A chemical agent, often a bleach or reducing agent, is applied to remove the existing color or in specific areas to form a design. So you pre-dye the fabric. Then you use what? A bleaching or reducing agent to reduce or to take away the colors that you have already applied to create designs. That is discharge. You are discharging the already dyed fabric to create a design. So example, applying discharge paste to a dark cotton fabric to create lighter motifs where the dye is stripped away. Key point here is that unlike direct printing where color is added, discharge printing removes color in certain regions, revealing a lighter or contrasting pattern. I hope you understand. So the third one is resist printing. So the definition, part of the fabric are treated or resisted so that dye cannot penetrate, creating patterns after the fabric is immersed in the dye bath. So here we are going to practice this one too. You tie certain areas of your fabric, then you put it inside or immerse it in your dye. So when you remove it and you untie, you see beautiful colors emerging. So example, we have the batik using wax as a resist. So you use wax as something like a candle. You melt, then you just apply on certain areas where the dye cannot penetrate. So when you put it in the dye and you remove it, you see the color. The color cannot go there. So it will create a design for you. Then you have tie and dye. Using ties, using clamps or stitches to block the dye from certain areas. So you can stitch so that dye cannot go there when you use nylon, threads, and others. Stencil resist, applying a paste or material that prevent dye uptake in the covered areas. So here the key point is that a resist substance or technique blocks dye from specific sections, resulting in designs once the resist is removed or the fabric is unbound. So here we are coming to talk about textures. Textures always play a key role when designing. So what is a texture? It is the feel or appearance of a surface, the surface feel, how the surface feels, the feel or appearance. In other words, we can say that texture is the surface quality of a design. So the roughness or the smoothness of the design surface, how the design what the surface feels, whether rough or smooth, the quality of the surface. It can also refer to the pattern on the surface of an object. Textures are found in variety of forms, such as lines, circle, dots, curves, and many more. They are arrangement of small constituents or constituent parts and are usually smaller in size than the actual motif. So you have the motif, all right. Then you create certain small constituents or motifs to enhance the actual hot motif. You will do it so you get to know. So let's see types of textures. So mostly or in all, we have two types of textures. You have the tactile texture and you have visual texture. So what is the tactile texture? Surfaces are said to be tactile when they can be perceived by touch. That is, if the texture on their surfaces can be felt by touching. Example, tree bark, you can just touch it. You can feel it in your hand. That is rough or it is smooth. Sandpaper, you can feel it. So that's the tactile one. Then you have the visual one. You can see it very smooth, but when you touch it, it is not. You can see it very rough, but when you touch it, it is not. So as if your eye is deceiving you, right? Mhm. Okay, so they are perceived by sight. That is, the surface texture can be seen with the eye rather than by touching. So texture tiles. So the tiles in your room, as if it is rough, but when you touch it, it's very smooth. Picture of grasses. You see the picture as if there are grasses over there, but when you touch it, it's very smooth. Stones and others. So that is the visual. So in designing, it is recommended that the lightest color is used for the background, the medium tone color for the motif, and then the darkest for the texturing. I hope you are taking this into consideration. So your background should have the darkest color. Your background should have the lightest color. Then you place your motif, and the motif should have the medium tone color. Then the texture will be the last, and that will have the darkest color, enhancing your work. So how can we get um, our motifs? So sources, our textures, sources of textures. Textures can be obtained from plants, that the tree bark, seeds, leaves, and we can also get textures from animals. Outer skin of the snake. You see, some of the snakes are very beautiful, butterflies, feathers, and mineral sources. Stones, mountains, valleys. So is there any importance to these textures? Very, very important in textile designing. Textures provide an additional design effect to the whole what design. It enhances the entire design and they serve as a bond between motifs and the background. It creates light and shade effects and breaks the monotony of the colors. At times, if the color, the background color is very hot, brighter, as soon as you put textures, it cools the color, making it cool for the eye to see. Now, we are moving straight to our dyeing. That's a fabric decoration process. So the first one is printing. You're going to print t-shirts, and you're going to print uh, on our fabric. Then after that, we also dye using our fabric. You can dye your t-shirt as well. So when you are being introduced, then you explore to get a whole lot. Dyeing is a process of adding color to textile products like fibers, yarns, and fabrics, or a method which imparts beauty to the textile material by applying various colors and their shades on the fabric. Dyeing also involves the penetration of the dye into the fiber and the subsequent holding of this dye within the fiber structure. It means that it needs to be part of the fabric. So that when you wash it, it is part. So that is dyeing. So what is the dye itself? A dye is a chemical compound used to impart or add long-lasting colors in materials such as fibers, yarns, and fabrics. A dye could also be defined as a substance or a coloring matter that is applied to a yarn or fabric to give it a color other than the original color of the textile goods. So let's look at the dyeing process, the dyeing, design, and the production. So dyes differ from pigments. So you are going to do printing, you're going to do dyeing. So what you're going to use to print is different from the dyeing, the chemical for the dyeing. So let's look at it. Which are finely ground solids dispersed in a liquid, such as paint or ink, or blended with other materials. A dye is a colored substance that chemically bonds to the substrate to which it is being applied. So one become part of the material, and the other one will rest on the material. This distinguishes dyes from pigment, which do not chemically bind to the material they color. Dye is generally applied in an aqueous solution and may require a mordant to improve the fastness of the dye on the fiber, which we will discuss later. What is mordant? And if you say the dye is fast, what is it? So pigment, on the other hand, give brighter colors and may be dyes that are insoluble in the medium employed. But with dyes, they are supposed to be reduced to soluble before the fabric will absorb it. But the pigment, the insoluble one, the fabric can absorb. They are colored powders that do not dissolve in the liquid. So when you put them in water, they will not dissolve. With which they are mixed, they must be regularly mixed and ground in the liquefied binder. So you have special binders that you use to mix them, but not liquid. So these are examples of dyes that you're going to use. Then these are the pigments. So you can see this pigment, it is resting on the surface of the liquid here. So they cannot mix, like pouring oil inside water. It will not mix, it will always rest. But if you pour sugar in water, it will mix. So these are some of the fabric dyes we have. We have reactive dye, direct dyes, acid dyes, we have natural, vat, dispersed, azoic dyes. So the classification of the dyes. So the dyes are classified into two main groups. We have the natural dyes, we have the synthetic or artificial dyes. In other words, man-made dye. Okay, so the natural dyes are those extracted from colored juices or made by grinding down vegetables or animal materials such as flowers, leaves, berries, tree barks, fruits, insects, shells, and other minerals, and mixing the resulting product with water to get your dye. But time will not allow us. So when we move on, we will extract our own natural dyes using some of these. Natural dyes are dyes or colorants derived from plants and animals, as I've already discussed. Majority of natural dyes are vegetable dyes from plants. So let's look at the characteristics of natural dyes. So they are eco-friendly because they are not chemicals. They are not toxic. So they are biodegradable. Less color brilliance. They are not all that bright as compared to the synthetic ones. And less allergenic as compared to synthetic dyes. Natural dyes have little affinity for the fiber. It means that they cannot absorb as compared to the synthetic fibers. Okay. So the synthetic dyes. The synthetic dyes are sometimes referred to as coal tar dyes. They are coming from petroleum. For example, you have the VAT. The VAT is also called indenturing dye. So we'll be using them VAT. Or when we say indenturing, the same as VAT. You have the acid, direct, reactive, basic, solvent, disperse, naphtol, synthetic, and many more. There are several types of synthetic dyes. So what we are going to use for our practical one is the VAT dye. The VAT dye. Then you also use reactive dye. If you're going to experiment these two dyes, VAT or indenturing, then reactive dyes. So what is the VAT dye? How does it work? The VAT dye is one of the large classes of water insoluble dyes. So you see, they are also insoluble, such as indigo and then the androquine derivatives that are used particularly on cellulosic fibers. The dye is applied in a soluble, reduced form to impregnate the fiber and then oxidize the fiber back to its original insoluble form. So in nature, they are also insoluble, just like the pigment. But before the fabric can absorb this dye, you need to reduce it to soluble form before the fabric can absorb it in that in that condition. So how do you reduce it? You reduce it by adding some chemicals, and these chemicals are the more that we talk about it. VAT dyes are especially fast to light and washing. They are very brilliant colors and can be obtained in most shades. So you can do a whole lot of things to get a lot of shades. So let's look at the natural dyes and synthetic dyes, some of the differences. Natural dyes are purely developed from nature as compared to synthetic dyes that are chemically manufactured. More expensive because they are difficult to extract. They're relatively cheaper. That is, the synthetic dyes are very cheaper as compared to the natural dyes. The natural dyes can be used for food, drugs, and cosmetics, but the synthetic dyes, they are very hazardous chemicals, and that they cannot be used for food. Natural dyes are biodegradable, very friendly to the environment, but as compared to the synthetic dyes, they are not friendly to the environment, but rather pollute the environment. Okay. So resistant dyeing process. What is it? Dyeing is application of dyes and pigments on textile materials such as fiber dyes, fabrics to achieve color with desired color fastness. Dye is normally done with water solution containing dyes and particularly chemical material. Dye molecules are fixed to the fiber by absorption. They absorb rather than resting on the surface as compared to the printing. Diffusion or bonding with temperature and time being key controlling factors when you're doing dyeing. So you don't use the correct temperature, you not achieve the best effect. The bond between dye molecules and fiber may be strong or weak depending on the dye used. So we have resistant styles like tie and dye, batik, then the combination of the two. So when you're doing tie and dye, we have some strategies or styles, techniques that you can use. So you have twisting the fabric, marbling the fabric, knotting, and making stripes. So the stripes can be diagonal, squares, circles, rectangle. Then we can also sew the fabric. Sewing comes in when you want a very intricate design. Then there is also tying in objects and folding, where you put maybe a drink, the bottle cover inside the fabric, then you tie it, creating a very nice design, just like the bottle top. Then the batik is where you use wax. And then the application of the wax, you can apply it in by stamping it, dipping the fabric, sprinkling, splashing, pick and pour on the fabric. You can also draw something, then that is object tracing. Then you have templates, you have drawing. Drawing comes like the treaty, where you want a very special design, where you cannot stamp. You use drawing, painting, wooden and foam blocks. So you can have the combination of the two in the same um, fabric. You can use 1 yard and have both tie and dye and batik on the same at the same time. So wax or paste. So first you melt the wax. You can also use kokunte. You do the kokunte, then you use it as block to block it, flour and others. So wherever the wax has seeped through, when you apply the wax on the fabric, the dye will not penetrate over there. So the resist agent may also be applied to another piece of cloth to make a stencil, which is then placed over the fabric. The dye applied to the assembly. This is known as what resist. So resist means you are resisting the areas where you don't want the dye to go there using your beautiful designs. So after drawing or imagining something very beautiful, how you fold it, then you tie it or you add the wax. So as soon as you do that, you immerse it in the dye solution. The dye cannot penetrate there. So when you remove it and you open it, you see beautiful design emerging. Okay, so this is how you do the stitching. The stitching, you use your needle and thread to stitch your fabric like what you're seeing here. You do demonstration. So after stitching, you pull it very tight so that dye cannot penetrate. And when you open it, you remove the stitch, you see your design coming out nicely like you're seeing here. So we have the folding, the tying. Good. So here you have folded. This is the fabric. This is the fabric here. You have folded. You have folded the fabric and you are tying certain areas. You see, nicely tied. So what you use to tie, we call raffia. So you see, tying. You learn how to do it. Then you pour your dye on it. So after untying, you see a very beautiful design like what you are seeing here. With the batik, you melt your wax, then you use your stamping, or where you want a very special, this thing you draw, like the woman is drawing. The woman is drawing using carved foam. So you can use tea jantin or jantin. But if you don't have it, you can still use an improvised material, that is the foam. or brush, or you can create your own thing to do your intricate design like you are seeing here. Okay, so this one you're using wax, melted wax. Let's look at some of the tools and material that we need when we are doing dyeing. So first of all, you need your dye, you need your chemicals, the vessels and the containers that will help you, needles and thread and twines for sewing. And the same, you have the raffia here, that one for tying, plastic spoons, sticks for mixing. You need soap for washing. Here, you are not going to use soap though. Templates for drawing, then the pair of scissors for cutting, firewood for heat, then rubber gloves to protect your hand, then your main fabric that you're going to use. Then you can also use the equipment. We have the waxing pan, you have the wax melting pot, guard cylinder, the workable table. Mostly you need a padded table. You can also use an unpadded one if it is you don't have the padded one. Then the guard burner. So this is the tea jantin that I'm talking about, the jantin or tea jantin. That's how some people call it. So here you use this place to cut, to take the dye, the wax. It's a metal. Then this place is used to draw on your fabric according to the design that you have on your fabric. Okay, so you have other materials also here. So let's look at how, if you want to dye, the recipe for the dye, dye recipe. How many should I take for 1 yard? Good. So if you're using the VAT dye, this is the recipe. If you take 1 tablespoonful, it goes with 2 tablespoonful of caustic soda, 2 tablespoonful of hydrous. So sodium hydroxide is the caustic soda. Then the sodium hydrosulfide is the hydrous. 1:2:2. Maybe this one can go for 1 yard. But this one thing is that as you practice, you know how to mix. But this is the standard one. So at times, me, if I'm dyeing, I mostly use more of the hydrous because that makes the color become very brighter. Okay, so these are the chemicals, the sodium hydroxide and the sodium hydrosulfide, and they play an important role in the dyeing process. Let's look at them. Note, most dyes come in different forms in the insoluble state, but made soluble by the addition of the reducing agent referred to as the mordant. So what is a mordant? It's a substance employed in dyeing to fix the color to the fabric. So without the mordant, you dye the fabric using just the color, you wash it, everything will go away. So, but when you dye, when you are doing during the process, you add your mordant, then it makes the color fix onto the fabric and become part of the fabric. Okay, so you have these two, sodium hydroxide and then the sodium hydrosulfide. Let's look at their functions. The caustic soda or sodium hydrosulfide, hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, that's the caustic soda. It assists the fabric to take the dye. So you open the pores so that the fabric can take the dye. Then it increases the affinity of the fabric. It opens the pores, and as the pores have been opened, then it can absorb. These are the two things that the caustic soda does. Then the sodium hydroxide, that's the hydrous. It makes the fabric more lustrous. So um, after the dyeing, you see the fabric shining, and it is a reducing agent that eliminates oxygen in the water. So you are saying that the dye is insoluble. You need to make it soluble so that the fabric can absorb. So this is the chemical that takes away oxygen. So it's the oxygen in the dye that makes it insoluble. So when you put in this hydrous, the hydrous takes away all the oxygen away, then the fabric can absorb. So it makes the dye soluble for the fabric to absorb. That is it. So after you have put the fabric inside, and then fabric is able to absorb, you need to expose it again to oxygen for the oxygen to come back before you can get your dye. Let's look at that. So this is the caustic soda that looks like sugar or salt. And this is the hydrous, looks like powder or flour. Okay, so they are the two moderns. So let's look at the process. So first of all, before you do your dyeing, which I will be inspecting, you select your tools and materials for the dyeing. Then you wear your appropriate PPEs. So the PPEs, your nose masks, your hand gloves, your aprons. You prepare your fabric by applying the wax, or you apply hot. You tie certain areas. After that, you heat your water. You use warm water for the preparation of the dye. So the hot water helps in increasing the pH of the dye solution for effective dyeing. So add dye into the bowl, measure using your spoon. You will do the calculations here. Okay, so add the caustic soda. After adding your dye, you stir, then you add the caustic soda. You have the simplified one here. And then next, you add your sodium hydrosulfide. So this should be 2 times the VAT dye. So that is the recipe I have given you. For this, we should be using maybe 3 plastic spoons based on the measurement that we have used. Let's move straight away to the dyeing process. So the following procedure may be followed when using indenting or VAT dye. First, you dissolve dye very well in a small amount of hot water. So you start by fetching warm or hot water in a small container. It shouldn't be too hot because the caustic soda and the hydrous, they are also hot. So in the absence of hot water, you can start with the caustic soda. As soon as you put it in the water, it makes the water very hot. So you can do that. So as soon as you put the dye inside, you stir. Then you add your caustic soda. So when you put in 1 tablespoon of VAT dye, you stir it. Then that goes with 2 tablespoonfuls of caustic soda. Then you stir when you are dyeing 1 yard. Then you add your sodium hydrosulfide. Then you stir. Then as soon as you add the sodium hydrosulfide to or the hydrous to the solution, when you maybe you are adding, you want to dye yellow dye. You put the yellow inside the warm water, you see it at yellow. You put the caustic soda inside and you stir, you see it at yellow. But as soon as you put in the hydrous, you see the color changing. It means that the oxygen inside the solution is taken away. So if the oxygen is going, it changes the color to a different color. So if your dye is good, you see the color changed to another color with a very light shiny surface on the surface of your dye. If you are not seeing that, it means that the dye is no good. As soon as you introduce the caustic soda, the color will change. It means that the oxygen has been removed and it will add a shiny surface on your dye. It means that the dye is good. Then after this, you allow the dye to stay for 15 to 30 minutes to cool down because you have used warm water. Add the solution to cool water enough to submerge the fabric. So the measurement of the water that you're going to pour you're going to pour your solution, the mixed solution inside will depend on the size of your fabric. So if the fabric is big, it means that the water must be enough to be able to submerge your fabric. Wet the fabric. That is very important. You wet it so that the pores will open. Wet and immerse it into the dye for 15 to 30 minutes. Remove it and expose it to air so that the color will come back. That is oxidation to take place. Immerse it in the dye again and again. This is where maybe after removing it, you don't like the color. Put it in the dye again so that the color will be very nice. If after putting it 1, 2, 3, and the color is not changing, it means that the solution, the actual color in the solution It's hot. It's exhausted. So here you need to maybe recharge the color by adding another you mix another color and put it inside so that it can hold, the color can come out. So after doing all that, and here that one is called exhaustion. When you put it severally and the color is not changing, it means that the dye exhaustion, the dye inside the solution is hot, is finished. We'll talk about that. Immerse the fabric in very hot water. So after you have put it inside for several times and you are now comfortable with the shade, then you expose it to air for oxygen to react on it for oxidation. As soon as you see the color of your distance, it's okay. You need not to allow it to dry before you de-wax it. So as soon as you see the color coming, you put your hot water, it should be a boiling water. Then you immerse your fabric inside, then you use the stick to turn it. Then as soon as you remove it, as soon as you put it in the hot water, then there must be a cold water beside you. As soon as you remove it, then you put it in the cold water to stop the the wax from hardening. Okay, so you stop it. So immerse the fabric in hot water at the boil to remove the wax. So collect the melted wax at the surface. You can also reuse it again. This can be reused. So rinse in cool water. Then after that, you dry. Then you iron when it is almost hot. Dry. Don't allow it to be bone dry. Okay, so what is vatin? I have talked about it. Vatin. So the vat or indenturing dyes are insoluble in water. The process of making vat dye soluble in water for dyeing purposes is termed vat. So that is it. So vatting is done by the addition of caustic soda and sodium hydrosulfide to the vat dye solution. During the process, the original color of the dye changes to another color. The original color is restored through oxidation, whereby the dyed fabric or the material is exposed to air for oxygen to react with it. I hope you understand it. So what is oxidation? Oxidation occurs when dyeing with the vat dye, indenturing dye. So which are insoluble in water. So by reduction, they are changed. When you reduce it, they are changed into soluble liquid or liquid, that the liquid is where the distance has changed. It become colorless. So in that condition, the fibers are able to take. So oxidation takes place when after steeping the fabric in the dyed bath, the fabric is exposed to air or immersed in an oxidizing solution. So at the industry, you have oxidizing solution, but here you just expose it to air. During the process, oxygen reacts with the solution or with the soluble dye to restore it back to its insoluble state as part of the fiber. The process helps the original color of the dye to show. I hope you understand it. So the dye exhaustion, I have explained it. The rate at which fabric absorbs dyes depends on the strength, the temperature, and the condition of the dye bath. This converts the insoluble dye into soluble by dye solution. It also depends on the ratio of the materials to be dyed to the dye increasing ratio of material to dye liquid. The rate of dyeing decreases with increasing ratio of material. So that exhaustion is the point where there is no further intake of dye. It is the point where no further coloration of the material being dyed takes place, no matter how long the material is left in the dye solution. So let's look at how will you know if the color is very good? And that is fastness, if the color is fast. So the fastener properties of a dyed fabric, when after dyeing, if the color is good, you know it by washing it. If you wash it, the color will not fade. If you dry it in the sunlight, the color will not fade. If you wear it and there's perspiration, the color will not fade. If you iron it, so it's fastener to ironing, fastener to rubbing, or abrasion. When you walk, then in between your thighs and between your armpits, the color will not fade. So there's fastness to washing, fastness to sunlight, fastness to perspiration, fastness to ironing, fastness to rubbing or abrasion. If all these things, the color is not fading, it means that the color is good. Okay, so we are looking at the reasons for decorating fabric. We have to look at dyeing and printing. So we have aesthetic appeal. When you dye the fabric, the aesthetic appeal. So enhancing the visual attractiveness of fabric. Decoration focuses on elevating the design appeal for both fashion and interior application. Example, floral patterns on cotton fabric can transform ordinary summer dress into visually striking garments. So that is aesthetic appeal. Then for cultural expression, decoration reflects heritage and our tradition, embedding cultural identity within the fabric. This not only differentiates one fabric from another, but also communicates our rich cultural uh, narrative. Example, the incorporation of a Dinkra symbol in Ghanaian print serves as a meaningful expression of our cultural pride and history. So functionality, beyond mere beautification, fabric decoration can offer practical benefits by enhancing the fabric's performance characteristics, such as providing water resistance or UV protection. Example, applying wax coating to canvas not only creates an attractive finish, but also improves its suitability for outdoor application by repelling water. Then market value. The creative elements can significantly boost the commercial appeal and perceived quality of the fabric, leading to higher market prices and greater consumer demand. When the fabric looks beautiful, people will run for it and the price can go up. Premium embroidered fabrics used in high and fashion collections are valued for high intricate detail and craftsmanship, which elevates their market value. So the basic practical reasons are here for beautification, for differentiation. So for beautification, fabrics are decorated for beauty, or fabrics are decorated to beautify or enhance the beauty of the fabrics. It focuses on improving the visual appeal in a straightforward way. So for differentiation, it is necessary to decorate fabric in order to differentiate one fabric from another. Emphasis using decoration to create unique identities for fabrics. Then versatility for occasions. Fabrics are decorated to make a variety of them suitable to be used for different occasions. So highlights the practical need to adapt fabrics for various uses. Then quality and market value. They are decorated to increase their quality and then sell high. That is the market value. So focuses on economic benefits by enhancing quality and perceived value. Then for communication, very important. They are decorated as a means of communication. Banner and t-shirt point out that decoration can convey messages or brand identity. That's a long one. So these are some of the ideas that you can use to create your symbols and motifs. For this end, I will end here and expect you to come out with your designs for our practical week. Thank you.